The grand hall of the Galactic Council shimmered like a sea of stars. Thousands of beings from various species filled the circular chamber, some towering, others small, some covered in scales, others in fur, and everything in between. Light from 3 suns streamed through the crystal dome above, casting rainbow patterns across the gathered representatives of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. But today was unlike any other council meeting today. Humanity was joining. Ambassador Adam Carter stood at the center of the hall, his simple black suit standing in stark contrast to the vibrant robes and ceremonial armors of the alien delegates. Though he appeared physically smaller than many of the other species, something in his posture commanded attention. His silver-streaked hair caught the light as he surveyed the faces around him. "Distinguished members of the Galactic Council," he began, his voice clear and steady. "Earth thanks you for welcoming us into your community. We look forward to sharing knowledge, exchanging resources, and forging friendships across the stars." He paused, allowing his words to settle. "However, there is one crucial thing you must understand about humans." The council elder, a tall, silver-skinned being named Valen, leaned forward. "And what would that be, Ambassador Carter?" Carter's expression turned serious. "Please don't make us angry." A ripple of translated laughter spread through the chamber. Several delegates whispered among themselves, gesturing toward the human with their various appendages. To them, humanity was a small, fragile species, barely having mastered faster-than-light travel. What could they possibly do? "Is that a threat, Ambassador?" asked a reptilian delegate, his scales shifting colors in amusement. Carter shook his head. "No, Counselor. It's a friendly warning. Humans dislike war, but we are exceptionally good at it. We would much rather be allies." More laughter followed. Even Elder Valen offered a small smile. "Ambassador, while we appreciate your colorful caution, perhaps we should move on to more practical matters. Your species' rapid development of FTL travel in mere decades rather than centuries is impressive. We are eager to learn more about your determination in this field." Carter nodded, though his expression remained solemn. "Of course, Elder. And in fact, our rapid progress in FTL development is a perfect example of what I am trying to convey. We didn't develop it gradually, we developed it because someone told us we couldn't." From the upper galleries, Professor Lyrian, a historian from a species known for their perfect memory, observed with growing interest. Unlike the others, he did not laugh. Instead, he made a note to begin studying human history. The meeting continued, shifting focus to trade agreements and territorial recognition. Yet, throughout the discussions, Carter found ways to reinforce his warning, weaving it into conversations about cooperation and development. The council members, however, treated it as little more than a peculiar human quirk, something to be acknowledged, but ultimately dismissed. As the session concluded, Carter took center stage one final time. "Thank you for accepting Earth into the galactic community. We look forward to peaceful collaboration with all species. And please remember, we mean it when we say, don't make us angry." Later that evening, in the council's private chambers, Elder Valen met with his advisors. "What do you make of these humans?" he asked, sipping a glowing liquid from a crystal cup. "Primitive, but eager to learn," one advisor remarked. "Their technology is crude, but they adapt quickly," another added. "And this constant warning about making them angry?" Valen asked. The advisors chuckled. "An obvious attempt to appear more dangerous than they are," one said. "What could a species that only recently discovered interstellar travel possibly do to concern us?" Valen nodded, yet a small doubt took root in his mind. Something about Carter's expression when he delivered that warning didn't match the bravado of a species trying to appear threatening. It looked more like the gaze of someone who had witnessed something terrible, something they never wanted to see again. But surely, he thought, no single species could be that dangerous. Could they? 5 years passed, an instant in the vastness of space. Humanity had established colonies on 12 different worlds, their ships becoming a familiar sight along the galaxy's trade routes. But something was changing. Professor Lyrian was the first to notice. In his study, surrounded by floating holographic charts, he examined human trade patterns. His species' perfect memory allowed him to recognize subtle shifts that others overlooked. "Look at this," he said to his assistant, pointing at a display. "Human mining operations have increased by 300%, but their trade in refined metals has only increased by 20%. He waved his hand, pulling up another display. And their colony ships, they're being constructed with twice the standard armor thickness. Why? His assistant shrugged all four of his shoulders. Humans are strange. Everyone knows that. Before Lyrian could respond, an urgent news alert flashed across their screens. The Mercantile Alliance, a powerful coalition of trading worldshad, accused Earth of undercutting standard prices and issued an ultimatum. They demanded immediate penalties. In the council chamber, Ambassador Carter stood calmly as the Alliance representatives shouted their accusations. His hair had turned grayer, but his eyes retained the same unwavering focus. "We understand your concerns," he said quietly, "but please reconsider your threats of a blockade. You really don't want to make us angry." The Alliance leader, a tall, blue-skinned Trayran, scoffed. "Still clinging to that old line, Carter? Your species has been saying the same thing for 5 years, but what have we seen? Nothing but words." Carter sighed, shaking his head. "The fact that you haven't seen anything is precisely why you should be worried." The Alliance ignored the warning. Within a week, their ships began stopping and searching human vessels near Earth's outer colonies. They expected protests, diplomatic outrage, perhaps a few skirmishes. Instead, something entirely different happened. Human ships altered their routes. Trade slowed but never stopped. More importantly, Earth's often fractured political factions, which frequently bickered in council meetings, suddenly presented a united front. Professor Lyrian noticed other oddities too. Human ships quietly disappeared from their usual docking locations. Their crews became more reserved, more focused, and, most curiously, their mining fleets continued operating at an accelerated pace, but now they did so in complete silence, with transponders turned off. "I don't like this," Lyrian confided to Elder Valen during an emergency meeting. "I've been studying human history. Did you know they're the only known species to develop nuclear weapons, use them in war, and then choose never to use them again?" Valen dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. "And what does that matter now?" "It matters," Lyrian insisted, "because it means they understand something no other species does: the true cost of total war, and that makes them very dangerous." The Alliance disagreed. When their blockade failed to achieve the desired effect, they escalated. A small human colony ship was seized, its crew detained. The response was immediate. Every human ship in the galaxy activated an emergency broadcast at once. The message was simple: "You were warned. Please don't make us angry." Then, for the first time since joining the galactic community, Earth went silent. No transmissions, no movements, nothing. The Alliance celebrated, believing they had cowed humanity into submission. But Professor Lyrian knew better. He had seen something like this before. In human history, they called it the calm before the storm. 48 hours passed. Humanity remained silent. No communications, no ship movements, no diplomatic messages. Just eerie, unbroken stillness. The Alliance leadership gathered in their private chambers, confident in their victory. "See?" the Alliance leader scoffed. "All that talk, all those so-called warnings, and yet nothing. Humans are just another weak species trying to appear stronger than they are." But in his study, Professor Lyrian sat rigid, his fingers trembling over his research console. His perfect memory replayed patterns, strategies, and tactics from human history conflicts that had reshaped their own world time and time again. Then, his screen lit up. Breaking news. Unidentified fleets, emerging from deep space. Lyrian's heart pounded as he analyzed the data. "They're not unidentified," he whispered. "They're human." Across the galaxy, from the shadows of asteroid fields, deep space shipyards, and concealed orbital docks, hundreds of human warships emerged, ships no one had ever seen before. Vessels far more advanced than the outdated cargo fleets the Alliance had assumed were Earth's best. The calm was over. The storm had arrived. The Alliance's blockade fleets had expected resistance protests, minor skirmishes, desperate negotiations. What they hadn't expected was coordinated, asymmetric warfare executed with terrifying precision. Human ships didn't attack head-on. Instead, they vanished from expected routes, striking deep into the Alliance's logistical heart. Supply lines cut. Communication hubs hacked and scrambled. Fuel depots destroyed or seized. Admiral Evelyn Thomas, commander of the human fleet, stood aboard her flagship, Righteous Fury, monitoring the chaos. They still think in conventional terms, she observed. They expect a single, decisive battle, but we don't fight like that. She turned to her officers. Initiate Phase 2. Across human-controlled space, warships split into small strike groups, each operating independently. The Alliance tried to form defensive lines, but human fleets refused to engage them in open combat. Instead, they struck where they were least expected, vanished, and reappeared somewhere else entirely. Professor Lyrian hurried to an emergency council meeting. They're not fighting for revenge, he told Elder Valen. They're fighting with purpose. Humans don't wage war to prove their strength, they wage war to win. The Alliance struggled to adapt. Their fleets were large, powerful, and organized, but slow. The human forces, by contrast, moved like ghosts. Small fleets attacked from unexpected angles, disappearing before counterstrikes could land. Human engineering teams worked behind enemy lines, building repair stations, refueling points, and hidden strongholds. They're not just fighting battles, Lyrian realized. They're building an entire war machine in real time. Meanwhile, a new kind of attack had begun: economic warfare. Alliance banking systems crashed overnight. Trade routes collapsed. Vital shipments disappeared, rerouted to nowhere. Entire worlds found themselves unable to sustain their populations. And then came the psychological warfare. Every major communications network in Alliance space was hijacked. Every screen, every broadcast, every message displayed the same chilling words. We warned you. We asked you nicely. You did not listen. Panic spread. Protests erupted. Citizens demanded answers. How are they doing this? The Alliance leader raged. Where are they even getting this technology? But Professor Lyrian already knew the answer. They've been preparing for 5 years, studying us, learning our weaknesses, and now we're seeing what that patience has built. The Alliance, desperate to regain control, gathered its largest fleet, 3,000 warships, around their capital system, forming an impenetrable defensive wall. This will be their final stand, the Alliance leader declared. Let them come. But the human fleet didn't come. Instead, human ships dispersed across the entire sector, deploying mysterious, unmarked devices. Within hours, every ship in the Alliance fleet went dark. No sensors, no communications, no navigation. What's happening? The Alliance commanders panicked. Professor Lyrian had the answer. They've created a complete electronic blackout. The largest fleet in the galaxy is now blind. And then, a final transmission reached every screen in Alliance space. Admiral Thomas, calm and collected, stared into the camera. Your fleet is crippled, your economy is shattered, your people are starving, and we still haven't used our most powerful weapons. The message was clear: surrender, or learn what happens when humanity stops holding back. The Alliance leadership crumbled. One by one, systems declared neutrality, unwilling to suffer further. The once mighty blockade fleets surrendered without a fight. Finally, the Alliance leader, his once proud posture now defeated, transmitted the words he had once mocked. We surrender. And just like that, the war was over. The aftermath. A lesson learned. 1 month later, the most shocking thing happened. The humans helped rebuild. Alliance worlds, ravaged by economic collapse, found human ships delivering food, medical aid, and technological assistance. Earth didn't demand reparations, territory, or control. Instead, they offered peace. Ambassador Carter stood in the council chamber once more. We could have taken everything from you, he said simply, but that would only lead to another war. Instead, we offer friendship. The former Alliance leader stammered, but you won. You could have destroyed us. Carter's expression remained firm. Taking everything from an enemy only ensures they will seek revenge. Turning an enemy into an ally ensures peace. Professor Lyrian smiled. He had predicted this. Humans weren't just warriors, they were survivors. They didn't conquer for power. They fought to end war itself. Over the next year, Alliance worlds recovered. Their economies rebounded, their infrastructure improved, and most significantly, they became Earth's closest allies. At his final council meeting before retirement, Carter left them with one final reminder. We warned you not to make us angry. Not because we wanted to threaten you, but because we never wanted to show you what we could do. He looked around the chamber, locking eyes with each delegate. Humans don't like war. We are peaceful by nature. But when forced to fight, we don't fight for dominance, we fight to end the conflict permanently. We fight to make sure we never have to fight again. The chamber was silent. No one laughed this time. And in the centuries that followed, whenever a reckless species considered threatening humanity, the elder races would stop them with a simple, time-honored warning. If a human ever says, "Please listen," because you do not want to find out what happens when they stop asking,